Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'm Sean Atkins, Chair of the East Point Planning and Zoning Commission, and at this time, I'd like to call our March 21st, 2019 meeting to order. Staff, would you please sound roll call to establish a quorum?
Commissioner Lovett. Commissioner Bell.
Here.
Commissioner Miller. Commissioner Fan.
Here.
Commissioner Atkins.
Present.
Commissioner Tucker.
Here.
Commissioner McKnight.
Here.
Commissioner Maxwell.
Here.
Commissioner Mitchell. Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like for us all to join in a moment of silence, please. Thank you. If you would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Commissioners, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to adopt our agenda for this evening's meeting.
I move that we adopt the agenda, for this meeting.
Commissioner Tucker actually made the motion first, and then it sounded like Commissioner Maxwell seconded the motion. Is that correct?
It would be me. But that's okay.
Commissioner Mitchell seconded the motion. All in favor sound aye.
Aye.
All opposed sound nay. Hearing none, the ayes have it. Our agenda is adopted as printed. Commissioners, at this time, I entertain a motion to approve our February 21st, 2019 meeting minutes.
Now I make the motion.
Is there a second? It's been moved by Commissioner Mitchell, seconded by Commissioner McKnight, that we approve our February 21st, 2019 meeting minutes. All in favor sound aye. Aye. All opposed sound nay. Hearing none, the ayes have it. Our February 21st, 2019 meeting minutes are approved. Commissioners, at this time, we'll move into new business. Okay. We'll move on to our next agenda item, which is new business. Staff, would you please sound our first case for this evening?
Yes, Commissioner. Case number 2019 V-003-02, the applicant Cindy Williams and Donald McClellan, located at 3151 Camp Creek Parkway. They are seeking a 4-part variance to allow for an electrified fence and is requesting relief from the following. Chapter 2, Section 10-2095, subsection A1, relief from a minimum lot size of 20 acres. Chapter 2, Section 10-2095, subsection A3, relief from the prohibited use of barbed wire. Chapter 2, Section 10-2095, subsection A5, relief from a 5-foot vegetative screen adjacent to a public right-of-way. And Chapter 12, Section 10-12021, subsection 1, relief to encroach within the 50-foot of the undisturbed natural stream buffer.
Thank you. This agenda item, as well as our other item on new business, it does require a public hearing. At this time, I'm going to read our rules for public hearings. They will apply to both this case as well as our other case under new business. Public hearings before the Planning and Zoning Commission shall be conducted in accordance to Section 10-2219 of the East Point Zoning Code and Development Regulations as follows. Persons both favoring and opposing the proposed case will be provided an opportunity to address the Commission. The applicant for the zoning case, or the applicant's designated representative, if any, will be entitled to speak first, followed by other proponents in favor of the proposal for a total of 15 minutes. Those who oppose the proposed zoning case will then be permitted to speak for a total of 15 minutes. By majority vote, the Commission may increase the total time for speakers provided that each side is given the same amount of time. If there is more than one speaker for a side, the chair or the presiding officer may limit the time allotted to each individual speaker other than the zoning applicant. The zoning applicant may reserve a portion of his or her allotted time for rebuttal. Speakers must adhere to the rules of decorum. Prior to speaking, each speaker shall identify him or herself and state his or her current address. Each speaker shall speak only to the merits of the proposed zoning ordinance, the zoning decision under consideration, shall address remarks only to the commission, and shall refrain from making personal attacks on any other speaker. The presiding officer may refuse the speaker the right to continue if, after first being cautioned, the speaker continues to violate the rules of decorum. You've heard our rules for public hearings. Commissioners, at this time, I entertain a motion to open the public hearing for case number 2019, V as in Victor, -003-02.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second motion.
It's been moved by Commissioner Tucker, seconded by Commissioner Maxwell, that we open a public hearing for case number 2019, V as in Victor, -003-02. All in favor, sound aye. All opposed, sound nay. Hearing none, the ayes have it. The public hearing is now open. Do we have our applicant present this evening, Cindy Williams and/or Donald McClellan? Would you please step to the podium, state your first and last name and your current address?
Cindy Williams, 550 Assembly Street, Columbia, South Carolina.
Go ahead.
Okay. I appreciate the opportunity to be before you again tonight. We are here for a variance from your code, which does allow for electric security fences. The first variance is for lot size. If you recall, several years back when the code was written, the intent of the code was, or the major reason, impetus for installing the code, changing the code, was to allow a lot of these parking spaces, these parking lots, businesses outside of the airport were having a major problem with break-ins and theft. And that was the reason. Most of those are fairly large, and that was the reason that you had the acreage limit on there. However, Elite Parking is also a parking business right outside the airport and is a little bit smaller, and it is also experiencing quite a bit of the same problems. And so we're here seeking some relief on the lot size. I believe this lot is 14 acres where your code says they should be 20 acres. That's the first variance. The second variance is for a small section. There is just one section of fence that has barbed wire, and we are asking to keep that barbed wire on that one section. There's a retaining wall there, and the landscape or the topography of the lot lends itself to being, right there you go, you see it. That is easier to, it kind of gives them a leg up to be able to get over that. So we're asking for just that small section to retain that barbed wire. The third variance is for the vegetative buffer requirement. If you look, that buffer is city property, and if you will recall, in previous cases, we're not allowed to plant and install into the public right-of-way, or the city public right-of-way. So there's really nowhere for us to install there. And the fourth variance is relief for the 50-foot undisturbed natural buffer along the creek bed. And we have been in touch with the state. The state is fine with that, but there's a city requirement also. We are happy to apply with the conditions that staff is recommending, and happy to answer any questions. The business owner is here if you would like any testimony from him as to the problems he's experiencing. You're welcome.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents here to speak in favor of the zoning case? Any other proponents here to speak in favor of the zoning case? Are there any opponents here to speak against the zoning case? Any opponents here to speak against the zoning case? Hearing none and seeing none, Commissioners, at this time I entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second? It's been moved by Commissioner Tucker, seconded by Commissioner Lovett, that we close the public hearing for case number 2019 V as in Victor -003-02. All in favor sound aye. Aye. All opposed sound nay. Hearing none, the ayes have it. The public hearing is now closed. Staff, would you please sound your recommendation?
Staff recommends approval of the four-part variance to construct an electrified fence at the subject property with the following conditions. Barbed wire is allowed only on the property line between the subject property and the adjacent property located at 3155 Camp Creek Parkway, as shown in highlighter on Exhibit A. Condition number 2, ensure adequate access is provided and any barbed wire on the property will not interfere with fire department operations. And condition 3, development must comply with all regulations set forth in Chapter 5, flood damage prevention in the zoning ordinance, as well as follow guidelines in Section 10-5010 through Section 10-5020 prior to commencement of the proposed activity.
Thank you. Commissioners, we've heard from the applicant. We've also heard staff's recommendation. At this time, I'll entertain a motion. Please remember that this is a variance. Your motion need not be in the form of a recommendation.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Tucker.
I'd like to make a motion to approve with staff conditions.
Is there a second? It's been moved by Commissioner Tucker, second by Commissioner Lovett, that this body approves case number 2019 Viz and Victor -003-02 with conditions as stated by staff. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Hearing none, I do have one question. The applicant talked about planning in the right-of-way, and that I believe, if I quote the applicant correctly, that that is prohibited. Is that in fact the case?
That area along Camp Creek is actually a right-of-way of DOT.
Okay, so it's not an East Point right-of-way
That's
because
correct.
it's a state
That's
road?
correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions, or concerns? Hearing none, the motion is to approve case number 2019 Viz and Victor -003-02 with conditions as stated by staff. The motion was made by Commissioner Tucker, seconded by Commissioner Lovett. All in favor sound aye. Aye. All opposed sound nay. Hearing none, the ayes have it. This case is approved. Thank you. Our next agenda item is 2019 U as in umbrella -001-02 and 2019 V as in Victor, C as in Charles -004-02. Staff, would you please sound this agenda item?
In case number 2019 U-001-02, concurrent variance number 2019 VC-004-02, the applicant Jason Summers. The location is 0 Camp Creek Parkway in the rear. The applicant seeks a special use permit for a multi-self-storage. The applicant is also seeking a two-part concurrent variance for relief from the minimum distance requirement in Section 10-2142, subsection A5, and the 40-foot height restriction in Section 10-2073, subsection EA.
Thank you. Commissioners, at this time, I entertain a motion to open the public hearing for 2019 U as in umbrella -001-02 and case number 2019 V as in Victor, C as in Charles -004-02.
So moved.
Is there a second? It's been moved by Commissioner Tucker, seconded by Commissioner Lovett, that we open the public hearing for the zoning case. All in favor sound aye. All opposed sound nay. Hear none, the ayes have it. The public hearing is now open. Is the applicant present this evening, Mr. Summers, Jason Summers? No S? Okay, Summer. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to see everyone again. I'm
Good
Lauren
evening.
Clayton from Wilson, Brock, and Irby. It's 2849 Paces Ferry Road, Suite 700, Atlanta, Georgia. I wanted to introduce my clients briefly. This is Aaron and Jason Summer. They specialize in self-storage facilities, and they brought the rendering that you all should have attached to your conditions, as well as the site plan, which I provided extra copies because I think y'all are probably going to have to squint on those. But there should be one available for everyone so that we could guide you through as needed. I'm going to give Jason just a minute to talk about his development company and what they do.
Hi, thank you very much. Thank you for hearing us today. My name is Jason Summer. This is Aaron Summer. We are Diamond Point Development, and we develop high-end...
State your address, please, Mr. Summers.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's 4310 Granby Way, Marietta, Georgia. And Aaron and I develop high-end self-storage facilities within the Atlanta Metro. We've done them all over the city, and we want to make sure that they're the nicest, best product out there. We do not develop this, and this is something that we showed on the work session. We do not develop any of the we call mini storage. This is a very different product, as you'll see from the rendering. We have taken staff's recommendation that if we do something, it needs to look similar to what we've rendered for the council here, for the committee here, and we're very happy to do that. We think this is a great use for this property. For one of the reasons is because there's not much else you can put on this property based on the makeup and the access and the visibility. We will make sure to have a beautiful product facing 285, something that everyone in East Point would be proud of, and something that would showcase the community the way you want to showcase the community. We've done this in many other communities on prominent streets, and we will be a good neighbor. And that was what I wanted to say. Any questions for me?
No, just public hearing.
So of course, we've reviewed staff's recommendation, and as discussed at the work session, there was some conversation about a difference of opinion with staff as to whether or not we need a variance based on the measurement distances, and I'm just going to talk very briefly about that. Our position is that when, in the absence of a measurement requirement, because you have to construe ordinances in the light most favorable to the applicant, it should be measured in a way that promotes the fair use of the property for the applicant. In this particular case, the distance between the existing self-storage facility and this one is approximately 3,100 square feet by pedestrian pathway. Staff measures it as the crow flies, so from point A to point B, if you're looking overhead, and I believe that was roughly 600 feet, which is why we've asked for the variance, because we defer to staff's request. If you look at the recommendation, and I think this is probably clear, but the special use permit is ultimately denied, as well as the height variance, because of the denial of the variance for the distance requirement. There is nothing in staff's recommendation that speaks negatively about the height variance request or the criteria to meet the special use permit. So what we're essentially dealing with boils down to, is there a hardship when it comes to this distance requirement? And if you read the letter of intent that accompanied the application, we believe that there is. For one thing, this property has been vacant for over 40 years. On and off, we've actually represented the owner of this property over the years, and for the past 20 years, our firm has been involved in some form or fashion in trying to redevelop this property to no avail. Its current stint on the market has attempted to woo places like restaurants and other types of entities, all commercial places that need visibility. And if you look at the site plan, this is an inverse triangle from Camp Creek. So ideally, what you would have would be a triangle where the most square footage faces Camp Creek Parkway, and you don't have that here. You've also got that stream that does two things. One, it impedes the buildable area of the site, but more importantly, it doesn't even create an alternative to that lack of facing Camp Creek, because you have the Camp Creek Marketplace developments to the west there, and you cannot get to there from here. So you would have to build an extraordinarily costly bridge to even be able to to be able to kind of drive through the shopping center and say, oh, look, a restaurant or something. But more importantly, a restaurant, an arcade, whatever you want to put there where someone might be driving through and say, hey, I want to stop there. It's just, can't go to this site. There's no interest. Nobody wants to purchase. Nobody wants to put something there where they need traffic. They need foot traffic. They need people looking at it. The self-storage facility is ideal for this site because people seek out self-storage facilities when they need storage. You've been provided with a feasibility report. Just so for your edification, the current self-storage facilities are maxed out, and as commercial space proliferates in East Point, which is obviously a good thing for everyone, those commercial spaces need the self-storage space. And because this is a high-end, it attracts people who are running commercial enterprises who need the climate control, who need the quality of the services that these gentlemen have to offer. This is also very low-lying property down towards the stream and towards the Camp Creek area of the property. Again, it would be enormously expensive to build any kind of bridge over that stream, so that changes the accessibility configurations quite a bit. And so what you have here in terms of this site plan with the extension of Camp Creek Point Avenue is what you get, and it really limits what you can put there. And I just did want to point out, I know this is not necessarily a consideration that you all are authorized to make, but in terms of the nature of that ordinance, And why that distance requirement is there is because you don't want a proliferation of self-storage facilities, which is totally understandable. Under these particular circumstances, what does proliferation mean? Well, you're driving around a neighborhood, it's your neighborhood, you don't want a bunch of self-storage facilities because you want people to have variety and be able to get from one place to another and be able to eat this place and shop at this place. The distance between this facility and the self-storage facility on 285 in terms of accessibility is night and day. I-285 divides them into essentially two different parts of town, the side with all the action happening at Camp Creek, where this is proposed to go, and the other side, which I think we'll all agree is not as commercially developed. So this serves a purpose, it fills a need, and it really relieves a significant hardship of this property, which is essentially, almost landlocked. And so we disagree with the planning staff with respect to the analysis of the hardship. And we do believe that, contrary to what the report says on the hardship, that we did not make an argument, that we have a pretty solid one. And we wish that you grant us this variance so that we can subsequently get the special use permit and the other variance as well.
What you said
Thank you.
then? You faded out on me.
Which part?
At the end, you just died.
We're just asking that you grant the distance variance, which is the precursor to the staff's recommendation. And unless I'm misunderstanding the staff, I think that if we could come to some kind of agreement on the hardship and the variance, then the special use permit and the additional variance for the height restrictions would follow.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents here to speak in favor of this zoning case? Any other proponents? Any other proponents? Seeing none, are there any opponents here to speak against this zoning case? Any opponents here to speak against the zoning case? Did you all fill out a comment card? Okay. Can we please get comment cards for those? Okay, the comment cards on the back table. If you could please get a comment card and complete a comment card and then step to the podium and state your first and last name and your current address. Okay. Is it in the?
No, they're on the table.
Yes, sir.
My name is Fitzgerald Smith, Jr. I live at 2469 Stone Road in East Point. I am the president of Washington Road Neighborhood Association, and I'm not here to speak on all of the neighbors, just those that I've talked to today, because we just found out about this. I'm looking at this map here, and that's true. You got those two, but what about the other two storage centers? There's 4 within a 1.5 mile radius of that one that they're proposing. There's one further down on Washington Road, right there, Washington Road and North Commerce intersection. And then there's another one that's on Welcome All Parkway. So that's 4 within this radius. Why do we need a 5th one? Why can't we wait to find something else to go there? That's all I have to say right now.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Are there any other opponents here to speak against the zoning case? Any other opponents? Please step forward. Step to the podium, state your first and last name and your current address.
Jacqueline Slaughter Gibbon, 3652 Calmer Circle, East Point, Georgia. I oppose.
Speaking to the microphone, please, Ms. Slaughter Gibbons.
I oppose to that also. As you all know, I was on council for 8 years. We attempt to bring something in there. We have an opportunity to bring something beside storage space there. I've had 3 different gentlemen in the last year call me that want to put an entertainment center there. Y'all that don't know, I'm a bowler. And when I go bowl at their tournaments in their house, they says, we need to get to East Point and put a bowling center there for children and adults. And being on by the board, we're in the process of locating one person from the south that owns 3 bowling alleys that's looking for a place in East Point. And I think that would be perfect for entertainment for children. I hate taking my grandbaby to Metropolitan, to Douglasville, to Austell, and I don't go to Old National for her to have entertainment. We need to bring something right here in East Point that will benefit our young peoples and our adult. And for y'all that don't know, entertainment center with bowling alley make big money. Be taxes, hotels, because I travel all over the country. Just got back from Biloxi on my way to Kansas City, and then to Vegas, and then back to California. And you have to have hotels. That brings sales tax to us. They utilize the restaurant, the shopping center. Why can't we bring something like that that takes some of the pressure off the resident of East Point and also be good for them? And it's possible if we can get our planning and development, our economic development, to start talking to some of the people that keep asking me about it, and I'll be glad to give them the number and the person name.
Thank you, Ms. Lauder Gibbons. Our next speaker, please step forward. State your first and last name and your current address.
Yes, Rex Pulford.
Speak into the microphone, please.
Rex Pulford is my name. The address is 2950 Arlington Road. When I look at this, it just strikes me that we are building the next Old National Highway. And I've been familiar with Old National for 40 years now, and age has not improved it. We need to work now to put in something that's better, not something that holds the status quo or takes us down lower.
All right, thank you, Mr. Speralter. Our next speaker, step forward, state your first and last name and your current address.
Catalina Scott, 3206 Grant Estates Drive. I am completely opposed to this. As you all may remember, I was also opposed to the food bank, and we now have the food bank, we have parking lots, we have more than enough storage. You want to add more storage, and you're turning our city and our neighborhood into something beyond a comfortable residential area. And I am just wondering at what point the city will say, let's do something for our residents instead of outsiders that decide to come to East Point because it's the easiest place for them to get something built and done. I don't see the benefit of having another storage facility, and if there is one, I would like to know what it is, other than it may benefit those who build it. Additionally, if it is slated to be a high-end storage facility, I'm not really sure who in this neighborhood would be able to use high-end, since most of the people that would probably use the storage dwell in the apartments. So I would like the city to consider that. And I agree with the previous speakers that we should look for something that is more amenable to our neighborhood, something that is more friendly, and something that will draw the right type of people to the city of East Point. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Next speaker, step forward, please. State your first and last name and your current address.
My name is Jonathan Rosser, and I live at 2923 Revere Court in East Point. And we got a call this morning from our president of our neighborhood association. And he was sharing this information about the meeting tonight and about this storage units that's going up. And based on the information that I've seen, again, I don't see the need for us to have another storage facility this close in our community. I do believe we can find a better use for this property that will better serve our community. And that seemed to me to be the reason for having the council and everything else, for us to do what's best for the community and for the city. And I don't see that this being any advantage to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rosser. Our next speaker, please step forward, state your first and last name and your current address.
I'm Willie E. Cummins, and I live at 3122 Red Wine Road. What I see there is a location that would best serve our community if it provided a space for expanding the capability of the restaurant and the hotels there so that we could have family reunions, and we'd have that space there to try to use. And I think that a storage room, a storage place now would defeat that purpose. And in as much as others have spoken about other locations, I'm in favor of enhancing the capability of families to utilize space that could use the current businesses there, like the restaurant and the hotel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings. Next speaker, please step forward, state your first and last name and your current address.
Yes, my name is Audrey Blackwell Bradwell. I live at 3111 Grant Way. I am the president of the Granite State Homeowners Association. And bottom line, I do not believe that we need another storage unit in this location. I appreciate that they're saying that they're going to bring a high-end, but I don't care if it's high-end or low-end. We do not need to continue to put storage units, things of this nature. Of course, we were totally opposed to, as Catalina said, what we have. But again, to bring a storage building into this area, we have two right there in the area. There's no way or no need for an additional storage unit. I feel that this property could be better used for something else. I don't know what it is, but just to say nothing else can come there, I believe that that's a falsehood. And I think if we just hold off, give it an opportunity to see what else can be built there, it would be a better thing for the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Blackwell Broadwell. Hope I got that right. Blackwell Bradwell. Okay. Any other opponents here to speak against this zoning case? Any other opponents to speak against this zoning case? Seeing none, the applicant has an opportunity to rebut.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board of the commission. I'm Larry Dingle, 2849 Paces Ferry Road, here on behalf of the landowner and the applicant. I've had the benefit of working with this landowner for over 20 years on this particular piece of property, on property associated with Camp Creek Marketplace and other holdings that he has in this community. So I speak with a degree of familiarity about the efforts that have been undertaken to rezone this property and to try to get it developed. Was it zoned as it is right now? 12 years ago, the answer is no. The landowner was willing to work with the city of East Point and an applicant at that point in time who requested the property be rezoned for a recreation facility. I've entertained solicitations from hotel developers, from senior housing developers, from apartment developers on this specific site in the last few years. And in fact, in the last couple of years, there have simply been no takers. So I want to make that very clear, that there is really a difficulty associated with this site, as my colleague Lauren Hansford has described to you before. With regard to the bowling center, this property has been zoned for 12 years. 12 years for that type of facility. Nobody has done anything at all to offer any creditable interest in this property. And what I mean by that is one thing to talk about it, but it's another thing to sign a contract and put money on the table to try to go ahead and perform under the terms of a contract to redevelop land. That simply has not happened respectfully. With regard to the concentration of these facilities, there are 3 in the city of East Point. There's one on Waccamaw Road, there's one across on 285, and the new facility there on North Desert Drive, okay? And, well, there is another, a third at the end of North Commerce Drive. The fourth that people are talking about is really the new facility that is there on Waccamaw Road, but it's actually in the city of Atlanta. It's not in the city of East Point, okay? And that's frankly the thing that really started the discussion around the concentration, because of the proximity of those two particular facilities. Now, what does concentration really mean? I want to remind you that you have over 1.3 million square feet of retail space at that corridor between Camp Creek Marketplace and Princeton Lakes, 1.3 million square feet of retail space. You have residential space all around it. We have worked for the last 20 years in this community. That is not a sense of concentration of any one particular use, and I hope that you all would consider that. And that's what I really mean by turning this place into a storage facility. You've got Duke Realty, you've got Camp Creek Point, across the street, Camp Creek Marketplace, Princeton Lakes, and then on the opposite side of the street, across Interstate 285, is a wholly and entirely different community. And so what we've done here in these 7 acres or so, tucked away next to Interstate 285, behind Camp Creek Point and the restaurants up front, is this small piece of land that has very little utility for almost anything else. And so if there are other offers out there, we would certainly have considered them, but they simply have not been there. Close to the community. Now, I just want to be honest. I'm just an old farmer from Carolina. We looked at this, and the question that I asked myself honestly is what residential community is impacted by this development? You can go probably a mile in any area, okay, with the exception of the apartments across the way, off of Washington Road, and you don't find any neighborhoods. It's just is not having that impact. Those are real. That's a real description of the reality of the space. Now, hotels, again, we've tried that. The reason we're in here is largely because it is not, when you talk about a high-end facility, it is not a situation where we're taking residential uses and somebody's going to store an old sofa in a temperature-controlled storage facility. That's really not what happens. For retail space, you may pay as much as $200 or $300 a square foot. When you're changing out your seasonal goods and services, sometimes you need a place that's cheaper to store those facilities. And sometimes if you have high-end materials like artwork or something else, and there are people in this community who do, they also want to have the ability to be able to protect those valuables in a way that will not be exposed to temperature and have the ability to rot and denigrate. We think this is an excellent use of this property. I'm sure if you will take a moment to look at the facility, you'll see that it is extremely well designed architecturally, that will present very well to the folks who are driving past East Point, and it would be something that would be an asset for which we can all be proud. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dingle. At this time, Commissioners, I entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second? It's moved by Commissioner Tucker, second by Commissioner Lovett, that we close the public hearing for case number 2019, U as an umbrella, -001-02, with the concurrent variance 2019, V as in Victor, C as in Charles, -004-02. All in favor sound aye. Aye. All opposed sound nay. Hear none, the ayes have it. The public hearing is now closed. Staff, would you please sound your recommendation?
In case number 2019 U-001-02, concurrent variance 2019 VC-004-02. Staff recommends denial of the special use permit for self-storage in the C2C Central Business District Conditional Zoning District. This recommendation is based on the following. Staff recommends denial of concurrent variance Part 1 to reduce the 1,500 feet distant requirement to the boundary of any other self-storage facility, mini or multi, as required in Section 10-2142, subsection A5. The justifications given to grant a reduction to the 1,500 feet distant requirement were not germane to the hardship considerations outlined in Section 10-2184. Subsequently, staff recommends denial of concurrent variance Part 2 to exceed the C2 zoning district height regulations of 40 feet as required in Section 10-2073, subsection AE, to 45 feet for the rear elevation of the building due to the recommendation of denial of the special use permit.
Thank you. Commissioners, we've heard from the applicant, we've heard staff's recommendation. At this time, I'll entertain a motion. And remember, Commissioner, this is a special use permit and a concurrent variance. Please make your motion in the form of a recommendation. Let us not all speak at once.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend denial.
Is there a second? It's been moved by Commissioner Tucker, seconded by Commissioner Maxwell, that this body recommends denial. Any comments, questions, or concerns? I have questions. So I was not here at last week's work section due to travel. My question is around, I heard the first attorney, Lauren, reference the absence of the method that would be used to measure the distance. Can you speak to that a little bit, just so that I am clear around that, please?
Well, I have a couple short statements to make. One is that what is before you is a request for a variance. There is not before you an appeal of the staff's interpretation. Mm-hmm. As you know, under the City of East Point Code, there are there are a variety of mechanisms available to an applicant such as this applicant. The applicant apparently has chosen not to appeal the staff's interpretation that the measurement be a straight line measurement. On the other hand, the applicant does take issue with staff in the documents that have been filed in support of the variance application. I understand the applicant to take the position that because there is no quote-unquote method in the specific section revolving around mini storage, that this body or the staff should interpret that provision of the ordinance to allow free use of the property and thereby make an interpretation that the 1,500 feet should be measured as a pedestrian walks it, as opposed to a straight line measure. My legal position on that question is that that question is not before this body, simply because the applicant chose not to appeal the staff's interpretation. The applicant is correct that in the ordinance section that is identified that the 1,500 feet measurement is stated to be from the storage facility to the property line of the nearest, the most proximate other storage facility. And it does not state whether it's straight line, whether you spin around in circles, whether you do a pedestrian walkway, how that distance from the facility to the property line is measured. Ms. Clayton and her client take the position that it should be measured for some reason as a pedestrian walks it. That question is not before this body. I have not provided this body with a formal written opinion in regards to how that should be measured, whether it should be straight line, whether it should be, pedestrian walkway. So I'm not really in a position this evening to say to you that my final legal opinion is it should be measured as the crow flies or as a pedestrian walks it. And part of the reason I don't have that opinion for this body is I do take the position that that question is not properly before you.
Okay, so you also mentioned the appeal. So what would be the process for that?
We've heard these kind of appeals before. If you look in the code, if you remember, there are primary variances and there are secondary variances. The secondary variance is the appeal. So the applicant was very much aware of the interpretation of the planning director with respect to how the 1,500 feet should be measured as of January, I think it was 30th, when that decision was rendered by Ms. Smith. Had they decided that they disagreed with that decision, they could have filed a secondary variance application to this body and said, this is why we think Ms. Smith, as the planning director, is incorrect. and then it would be properly before you as a matter of procedure. They did not do that. Apparently, they have chosen to come and nonetheless ask for a variance. And a different set of criteria applies to a primary variance, and those criteria are set forth in the staff report, the ones that you're all very familiar with, hardship, exceptional topographic, conditions, detriment to the public. The standard primary variance criteria is what applies tonight to what is before you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions, or concerns? Commissioner McKnight.
Yes, I do have a couple of questions, actually. The first one is actually for the residents who were opposing the facility. I guess I want to be able to answer their question, so it's directed actually to the applicant. There was concern about wanting, the hotels, the other uses in this area, and I understand that you guys have represented the property owner of the land for a number of years, so you know the type of request has come through. So for some of the ideas that they had presented, and the reason why hotels or entertainment centers or anything like that haven't actually gone through or passed, or actual contract has come before you guys, what are the reasons or some of the, I guess, the issues for someone who wants to purchase this type of land? What has come up for them?
One of the issues that the last hotel operator had was the positioning of the site and the ease of access in getting to that site.
Okay.
And then he's going to be competing, or it would have been competing with the two hotels in front of them. But that's, again, one of the reasons why we are suggesting that there is a uniqueness to the challenge in terms of associating, at least in terms of developing this site, because it's not uniquely and frontally positioned so that it gives you ease of access.
Okay, so the position and the ease of access are some of the reasons. That's your thing? Okay.
Do you have another question?
I also wanted to see a copy of the rendering. I haven't seen that.
Let us say that what we have said, this is not just a copy of the rendering. We'll condition a special use permit to this rendering.
Okay. And the last thing in terms, I want to make sure I'm clear and everyone's clear on the hardship that you guys actually are presenting to us. It's
Yes.
not based off of what you just described in terms of the distance. So what is the hardship?
No, it isn't. And I laid it out in my presentation earlier, but I also laid it out in my letter. And so there is a discrepancy between staff's recommendation, and you see, I think that's what you're looking at there, where it says that it wasn't germane to the hardship analysis. There were 2 full paragraphs in the letter specific to this property about the topography, the streams, the shape of the property, and its proximity to Camp Creek, that it's been vacant and undeveloped for 40 years, and that is very challenging topographically and geometrically. The stream places significant limitations on the property at the westernmost boundary, and that necessitates the aforementioned stream buffer that was already conditioned back from 2013. The triangle, again, makes its visibility nearly impossible for shoppers and other people driving up and down Camp Creek looking for a place to eat or go bowling or go shopping. And so that has been a severe limitation. And also the amount of bridge work that would be required to cross the stream at certain points would also be massively difficult. We're talking about a couple $1 million to do that bridge work. And I also did want to point out, if you don't mind, Mr. Atkins.
It would have to be in response to the question from Ms. McKnight because a public hearing is closed.
Okay, it was
So
in
I want to be
response to
fair
the-
to all parties. So this is not an opportunity for
Sure.
you to continue to rebut, but you can speak in response to any question of the commission.
Okay, thank
Okay. Any other comments, questions, or concerns?
I have none. I've been very quiet. I have none.
Okay.
just gonna vote tonight.
Thank you. Hearing no other comments, questions, or concerns, there's been a motion by Commissioner Tucker, seconded by Commissioner Maxwell, that this body recommends denial, case number 2019 U as an umbrella, -001-02, with a concurrent variance 2019 V as in Victor, C as in Charles, -004-02. All in favor of the motion to deny, sound aye.
Aye.
All opposed, sound nay. Hearing none, the ayes have it. This body recommends denial of this case. Our next agenda item would be announcements. Staff, do you have any announcements for this evening? Okay. Commissioners, do you have any announcements? Hearing none.
Motion to adjourn.
Hearing none, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. It's been moved by Commissioner Fan, seconded by Commissioner Tucker, that we adjourn. All in favor, sound aye. Aye. All opposed, sound nay. Hearing none, the ayes have it. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.